Welcome to Life Lessons and Law with Lashonda. I'm your host, Lashonda Counsel Rogers. In each episode, we have authentic and entertaining conversations about the impact of the law on women. You can find this show on my website, www.thecounselfirm.com, and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Now, please join me in Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. And today we have with us my Spelman sister,
Yes.
Olivia Smith, and she is with SR Law Group. And you're a partner at SR Law Group. And Olivia, our time is limited.
Yes.
So I want you to jump in and tell us a little, snippet about yourself and about SR Law Group. And then it's full force going forward.
Sounds good. Well, I first want to thank you for having me on.
Of course. Of course.
SR Law Group is an estate planning and elder law firm. And so our passion is helping seniors. So most of our clients are 60 to 65 or older. We obviously serve people that don't fall in that category, but that's kind of our sweet spot. Our office is in Douglasville, but we wind up serving clients all over, really the Atlanta metro and Georgia. We also do probate work as well.
Got you. Now, I know people may be familiar with the term probate law, probate, this, that,
Mhm.
but tell us a little bit what you mean when you say elder law. What does
Yeah.
that mean?
So it really speaks to the age of the demographic and
Okay.
the challenges that maybe that demographic may be experiencing that another younger demographic, people in your 20s, you're just getting started in life. You may, just have graduated from college. And so you have certain challenges. Midlife, there are certain challenges. Well, the same thing at that particular age. So when we're looking at 60 to 65-year-olds, oftentimes we think about, okay, when we're planning for what happens if I die. But we don't think about, okay, well, what happens if I get sick? And so part of that is really looking at long-term care planning and asking those questions and just getting our clients to even start thinking about that. Most of them haven't even considered that part. They've just really been honed in on, I need a will, or maybe they think I need a trust, but they're really thinking about after they pass away, not, if they get sick and they're still here.
So, what is there's this hesitancy to talk about probate and wills, and then there's this hesitancy to talk about elder law and elder care. Is it so? Tell me some of the reasons why people kind of shy away from putting things into place.
For sure. There's definitely a hesitancy. I thought that it was, I was speaking to a group of people and I was like, well, in our community, I thought it was cultural. And I was speaking to some people and they were like, that's not just in your community. It's it's in all communities. I think it's just a hesitancy to really speak about death. That's not something that previously has been a topic of conversation. And so that goes into planning. They Seniors and aging people sometimes don't want to talk about planning. They don't want to talk about, what happens if I can't handle my finances anymore, or what I want in place if I can't make healthcare decisions for myself anymore. So those are the things that we have to start talking about, because if we don't talk about them, then we don't know the answers when something happens. And so that's kind of been the challenge, that it's been kind of a taboo topic.
Mhm. So, being that it's such a taboo topic, and I guess for I'm kind of in this stage of life now where I have small kids, and then I have grown folks,
Mm-hmm.
parents. For someone who is in the middle like this, what do you do if your aging parents don't want to have anything to do with this planning? Is there something that can be done?
That is a great question. So you're part of the sandwich generation.
Yeah. Oh, that's what it's called? There's a name, a
Yes,
sandwich?
yes,
Okay.
and that's a lot of us. We may have
Okay.
small children, but we also have aging parents. And it is a unique position because we want to, our parents may still be independent. They
Mhm.
still want to handle their own business, but we do have to recognize that they are aging. Maybe they're moving a little slower. Maybe there are subtle changes that we are starting to recognize with our parents. And so we want to help out a little more with them, but also respect their autonomy and their independence. And so there is a tightrope that we have to walk with them. And so what I say is to not be overbearing, to respect their independence, but to start to ask questions and to start to be observant. We are entering the holidays, which is a great time. Families are more spread out these days. You may not live in the same state with your parents. You may not see them as much. And so, if you're going home for Christmas or you're going home for the holidays, it's a great time to just kind of look around and observe and see what's happening at the house that mom and dad live in. Is it still well maintained? You know, is the yard well maintained? Is inside well maintained? Do you see that maybe slipping a little? Open that refrigerator, look inside. Are there things with expired, expiration dates that are a couple years past? Open the pantry, see what's going on in there. And so I think part of is being observant and looking at our parents with a different set of eyes. I think that is probably the number one step as we enter this new phase, because as our parents are entering a new phase, so are we. And so it
Yeah.
requires us to act a little differently as well.
And I must say that recently I looked at my parents and I was like, they're getting older. Before, obviously, every year you would celebrate a birthday, you know they're getting older. But it hit me like a ton of bricks that I was like, oh no, this is real.
Mhm.
This is real. I saw the gray hairs, no problem. Got gray hairs now. I got them. But just to the reality of it is numbing. It is numbing. And I sat there and I was like, oh my goodness. Hmm. Hmm.
It's definitely an awakening
Oh
on
yeah,
both
yeah,
sides,
yeah, yeah.
for
I had
sure.
I had that aha, like, okay, you don't want to face the reality, but
You
the
don't.
reality is there and it's real. And the I think, in my opinion, the best thing to do is at least make it as comfortable and easy, and not to say it's easy, but just, I guess, with planning, you take some of the questions off the table about, okay, well, what about this? What would somebody want? What, because you never know until you ask. And it's tough. It's very tough.
What I tell my clients is it is a gift that you give your family when they don't have to wonder, okay, am I doing the right thing? Is this what my loved one would have wanted? When you have it laid out and when you've had those conversations, not to say it's any easier, but
Right.
when you know for sure, okay, I've talked to them, this is what they said they wanted. I know I'm carrying out those wishes. There is a piece to that, and
Mhm.
you don't get there unless you are having those conversations. And so outside of being observant, the second thing I would say is start having the conversations. And it's not a conversation, there are
Right.
multiple conversations that have to be
Yeah.
had. It's not just a one time thing. And your parents may not be the most receptive at the beginning. you have to be prepared for that for sure. A couple of years ago, I told my parents, I was like, okay, I can't do this work and you not have your estate planning done. So we have to do your estate planning. And so I sat down with them. I wasn't going to do it, but I wanted to just kind of get them started thinking in that vein. And so, I said, okay, well, if you couldn't stay at your house and you had to go to a nursing home, and like just me saying that, it was like a record scratch. And they were like, nursing home? Who's going to it? Nobody's going to a nurse. That was it for them. Like that was all that they could handle. They needed to sit with that for a little while. And we had to like come back and have further discussions about why that may be the case and what that would look like and what that would mean or what they would want. And so you want to start early while there's no pressure, while no
Right.
one's sick, while there's no stress and no urgency, because you may have to have a few conversations.
Okay. So then you bring up a good point. Everybody's listening, but then what if they don't listen? And
Mm-hmm.
then, well, no, everybody hears what you're saying, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't listen.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes a point of urgency.
Yes.
Someone's mental capacity is declining, or there's something that, although we saw it, we can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah.
What do they do now?
So we get those calls all the time. So we get calls where maybe mom or dad has dementia, but
Yeah.
it has escalated to the point where they no longer have capacity, and at that point we can't do their planning. And so maybe depending on the need of that family, they may need to do a guardianship or a conservatorship, which requires us to go to probate court and ask the court to grant them that guardianship or conservatorship. So there are other options, but it does require court. And a lot of people try to avoid court,
Yeah.
court if at all possible. And guardianship and conservatorship is uncomfortable because you have to
Right.
prove to the court that your loved one needs this. And so,
Mhm.
in essence, you're saying not the nicest things about your loved one.
Right.
And they're there to hear it. And so it's an uncomfortable situation. Definitely sometimes it's required and needed, but yeah, if we can avoid that, let's avoid it.
So I know that this area of law has been very, very personal to you
Mhm.
because you've experienced with your grandparents uh, going through the very thing that you are telling us to avoid. Do you mind
Absolutely.
sharing a little bit about that?
Sure. So, what even brought me to this area of law? So, my grandparents had 13 kids. Right. They were farmers. You got to have somebody to work the
Yeah,
land.
no, my grandparents had 11.
Right. You got
So,
to have somebody to work the land. And I think for that time, they did more than most. They went to the town attorney. There was one, and they had him draw up a will. My grandmother was the last living between her and my grandfather, and so when they looked at her will after she passed, it was to give what she had to all 13 of her children equally. And so you can imagine what that looked like. And some of her children had predeceased her, so that meant some grandchildren were going to be involved, and so um, that was a chaotic mess. And so what it really taught me through that process and watching my family trying to figure that process out and the stress and strain was how important the counsel was
uh,
for attorneys in this area, not to just have a client come in and say, okay, this is what I want. I need a will. And you say, okay, you need a will. You want it to go to all of your children and write it down, but to really walk through what that looks like, to preview that, and to provide counsel so that you can make sure that what that client really wants is what they're actually going to get at the end of the day. And quite honestly, at the end, my grandmother was no better off had she not even had a will, with that being her will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what should we look for when we're selecting a probate elder law professional, such as the professionals at SR Law
Yes.
Group?
Yes. So it is definitely someone you have to feel comfortable with. And I tell potential clients when they come in for consultations all the time, it's like a date. Like, do you like me? Do I like you? Because I'm going to get all in your business. I'm
Mhm.
going to talk about assets and debts and family dynamics. And you have to be comfortable enough with me to be willing to share that information. It needs to be someone that is going to be willing to take time with you and explain to you what. There are so many people that come in that have a stack of documents and they're like, I went somewhere and they did something and here it is and I don't know what it is.
Right.
They need to be willing to explain to you what is being done and what the documents are and what they mean. And it needs to be someone that is willing to discuss with you the pros and cons of what you're asking for. Make sure that you really understand the repercussions from what you're saying that you want, because oftentimes people come in with an idea, but they don't really understand the repercussions for what they're asking for.
Right.
And I can ask a couple questions and then they're like, oh, I haven't thought about that. So you want someone that is willing to spend that time with you and ask those questions to make sure that your goal is being achieved.
Wow. That's so important because I feel like if you pick the wrong person and your paperwork isn't done
Correct.
correctly, you're back at square one or you're probably at negative square one
Yeah, because you
because you're gonna have to,
paid.
yeah,
You
you
paid.
paid for garbage
Right.
and now you have to ungarbage it.
Right.
So I don't even know if that's a word, but just gonna use it today.
Today, we're going to use it
We're
today.
gonna ungarbage it. So, hmm,
Yeah,
everyone watching, take note, take note. You have to have the right professional
absolutely.
taking care of these affairs for you. So, with that being said, Miss Olivia Smith,
Yes.
our time has come to an
Oh, no.
end. I know it is so
It was
fast. So,
fast.
before we wrap up,
Yes.
just give us a few little parting words
Yes.
and then tell us how the viewers and the listeners can find you.
Sure. For those of you that have aging parents, a couple of tips when talking to them about estate planning, talking to them about long term care planning. Be patient,
Mhm.
respect that they are still adults and they're independent. Understand that it's not one conversation, it's multiple conversations. And sometimes it's helpful to lead by example and say, hey, I'm also doing this. I'm getting my house in order. I'm doing my estate planning. Let's do this together. But I think it is work worth doing. You will be happy you did it because either you're going to do it now or you're going to do it under really stressful circumstances, and you would much rather do it now while you have time, and you're not stressed. There is not time constraints, and you're not stressed trying to do it.
Got it.
I am a partner, co-owner at SR Law Group. We are in Douglasville. We serve most of the metro Atlanta area, most of Georgia. You can reach us on socials. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram, SR Law Group. Our office number is 404-410-6505. And our website is srlawgrp.com.
Got you. And before
Yes.
we just leave,
Okay.
I want to talk about your podcast because that's very
Yes.
important. Tell us about the podcast and the purpose, how we can tune into that, I'm so sorry. I totally
That's
see.
okay. Thank
But
you. Yes,
we're
thank
getting
you.
it
Because
now. We're getting it now.
the podcast is actually the continuation of this. It is called Black Parents Aging. It is for us, it is for the sandwich generation who have parents that are aging. It's tips, it's tricks to help us along the way, to guide us through that process, to help us do it a little smoother. We interview professionals that work with seniors. I learned there's so much information that I learned that I didn't even know. We have a new
Mhm.
season that'll be starting at the beginning of the year with new professionals and new information. So definitely tune in. We are on Spotify, we're on Apple. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can access Black Parents Aging as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Olivia, for joining us. And like you said, the timing is perfect. The holiday seasons, families are together. So we need to just slip those conversations in there
Sneak it
so
in.
that we can handle our business and take care of, what everyone in our family has worked so hard for,
Absolutely.
and to make sure that this, families stay together. Because I have seen, and I'm not even in probate, how not having affairs like this in order can
Mhm.
destroy a family. And it's devastating. It's devastating.
It
So
is.
thank you for all that you do. And for everyone watching, okay, you have no excuse now. SR Law Group is here and they're ready, willing, and able to help you. So have those conversations with your aging parents, aging family members, so that we can stop, I guess, this stigma about the aging process. So
Yeah.
until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. I have gladly hosted this podcast today, and my name is Lashonda Council Rogers. Take care until next time. You've been tuning into Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. In each episode, we have authentic and entertaining conversations about the impact of the law on women. I hope you'll join me each time. You can find this show on my website at www.thecouncilfirm.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. We appreciate your positive comments and reviews. And don't forget to share this show with others. I've been your host, Lashonda Council Rogers.